Welcome to another episode of the Erasmus Student Network podcast. My name is Phong. I am currently the Partnership Manager for ESN BFI Vienna. Today I have a very special guest with me, Mr.
Claus Inanger. Hello.
And you are, what is your profession at the university?
Actually, as a matter of fact, I take care of our outgoing students. So if you want to go abroad, study abroad, I'm the person to talk to, basically.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Inanger. Mr. Inanger, you also went on Erasmus.
As a matter of fact, yes. I mean, that was 1992 when Erasmus in Austria started. So I was actually one of the first Erasmus students that went on Erasmus.
Okay, and why did you go on Erasmus back at that time?
I guess, I had just spent a year in the United States, so I came back to Vienna and I was like, man, I missed something here, the excitement or so. And so one day, a professor of mine came into the classroom and said, we've got something new called Erasmus. Is there anyone who would like to go? And I was like, hey man, that's my opportunity because, I wanted to go away again and feel the excitement of being abroad and discovering new things.
Yes.
So I said immediately, I'll go.
That's amazing. So which country did you choose to go to?
I went to France, actually.
France. Paris?
No, Dijon, actually, one of our partner cities.
Nice, nice. And how long was your Erasmus? 6 months or 1 year?
No, 6 months.
So at the time it was already 6 months and...
Yeah.
Okay. And how did you find this experience? Your first ever Erasmus? I mean, you said you've been to America before, right? Before that?
Yeah, it was not that scary anymore because I had already spent a year in the United States, so I was kind of familiar with everything, going abroad, being on your own. But it was still exciting, lots of preparation and, times were different back then. It was not that easy to get information and all that.
Yeah. And so, please, I want to know about that because, now we have much more information. We have amazing people like you working at universities, making sure students get to their countries and making sure they apply to universities and courses and stuff. But how was that for you back then when it was all new and, they didn't have all this stuff?
As a matter of fact, it was a little bit difficult because, there was no internet. There was no information you could get. All I had was basically that my professor here in Vienna said, okay, there's a professor there. Once you're in Dijon, contact him and he will take care of everything.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, that's not a lot. I somehow managed to contact a student dormitory and get a room there. But when I actually left Vienna, I was not entirely sure that I would have a place to stay. So I arrived in Dijon, and it was just, okay, let's see if it's going to work out or not. And it did. Fortunately, somehow.
And how was it? So now, when students come to the university, they get put in a group with all other incoming students, right?
Yeah.
How was that for you? Were you also put into a group with all other incoming students coming to Dijon? Or...
No, not at all, because there weren't that many Erasmus students, so you were basically on your own. You found some other students maybe that were from abroad.
Okay.
You found other local students that were interested in meeting you, but there was nothing like ESN, for instance. There was no buddy system there. You were on your own basically.
Yeah, so you pretty much just went to France and had to start from the beginning with just your own, no friends, no connections, nothing.
Yeah.
And so, tell me about that. So you go there and you're alone, it's the 90s, you ain't got no internet, no information whatsoever. How was that like? Especially French, they don't speak English a lot in France.
Not at all. They were rather reluctant to speak
exactly, yes.
English. After a while, once you got to know them better, they started, but in the beginning it was difficult. And I think the first 3 weeks were really difficult because, it was not that easy to find people you can actually, or that you could communicate with and go out and have fun and, talk about your experience.
Yes.
And there were also a couple of practical things that had to be figured out, just a couple of days ago, I tried to remember how, for instance, I got my money.
Yeah.
And it was we didn't have credit cards or anything like that. No, we used checks, and that was kind of weird.
Yeah, so you
travel checks.
Travel checks.
Yeah.
Shout out to Travel Shack. So, So back then you had no Erasmus students there, it was just you pretty much finding your own way.
Yeah.
But still was an amazing experience nonetheless.
It was an amazing experience. As I said, the first 3 weeks were a little bit difficult, but after that, it was just great.
So after that you got used to it, you got to know some locals and...
I got to know some locals, some international students, even fell in love and all that.
Amazing. There's just something about Erasmus that makes people fall in love, isn't it?
It is, because I guess, you're in a different environment, you're open to everybody, and so that's probably the reason why you tend to fall in love. I don't know.
Oh, we actually have quite a few love stories, with the past few groups that we have had. And
there must be a reason, I read the statistics, and they said there are approximately 1 million Erasmus babies already, so...
Shout out to all the Erasmus babies out there, 1 million of you, that's a great fact. So 1 million Erasmus babies.
None of them is mine.
Were you close to having one?
No.
No, okay.
I was too young for that.
You were too young for that, yeah. But I forgot to ask, how old were you then when you did this?
22, I think.
22? Yeah, so the perfect age actually.
Perfect age, or was it older? I don't know. Oh,
yeah.
It doesn't matter.
But, so you did the 6 months and you came back. How was that experience like, spending 6 months abroad, 1 year in the United States, 6 months in France, now coming back to Vienna? How was that all like? Because we hear a lot from Erasmus students when they come back to the university or to their home country, they say they're depressed, they miss the fun, they miss the people and all that. How did you feel back then?
Actually, I think I went through most of that, all these emotions, because it was like, okay, now I'm back. I felt like I had moved on, made a lot of experiences, and then, you come back, meet your friends, and, of course, the first evening they're interested in your stories.
Yeah.
Second evening is like, okay, could we talk about something else? And the third evening, just shut up, you and your Erasmus. So you're kind of on your own with that, all these experiences and dealing with them. And, an Erasmus stay and a stay abroad is so exciting that, everything, when you come home is a little bit like boring. So you get addicted to that kind of experience.
And another thing that I've heard is that, like you said, the first night everybody wants to hear, but the third night nobody wants to listen to me anymore. And a lot of people who come back from Erasmus get this problem that, who do I share this with now? Because all my Erasmus friends are back in their countries, right? The ESNs are still back in the country abroad, and here I am back at home. My family doesn't really understand what I went through, the amazing experiences I have. How would you suggest an Erasmus student coming back from Erasmus, how would you suggest they deal with this post-Erasmus depression?
Back then it was more difficult because you couldn't travel that freely. Of course, with the coronavirus nowadays, it's rather difficult again, but I would probably, if I had the opportunities like now, I would have jumped on the next plane, visited friends and, gone to parts where I had made friends. Just to keep in touch with them, because, once in a while you actually make friends for life.
That's one of the actually amazing things that I love about the Erasmus program. That the ability to make friends for life. Like, we actually had, you remember last year, we actually did the Erasmus Days. And one of the incoming representatives was Evelyn. She actually came back to Vienna a few weeks ago, and we actually met up, me and her boyfriend, Niels, who was also an incoming at this university, so they are a love story. They decided to come back to Vienna, they gave us a call, we met up with them, and
that's lovely.
And so that was something for me personally that was like, now I know why it's so special, because whenever you return to another country, you always have somebody there that you can meet up with, have a chat, catch up. And that's just one of the amazing things of the Erasmus program.
So I would suggest, just stay in touch with the people you met there and the friends you made there.
That's great advice. Stay in touch. And so how would you see the change that has happened now? Since you're Erasmus and now you're seeing students coming here every semester, how do you see the Erasmus program has changed over the course of the last 20 years?
I think, the experience has become much more structured. In the sense, it's much better organized. You generally don't go somewhere and you are on your own there. But I mean, we've got ESN, we've got people or people that actually help you to find your way into that new situation. We didn't have that back then, and there was no internet, there was no information, and so nowadays you can be much better prepared than I was back then. It might take away a little bit of the adventure because, but I think it's still a good thing, because it helps you a lot to be, supported by fellow students, by international office and all that.
And so now let's get to Corona, because that has been the topic of 2020.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, very unfortunately. I mean, we at the FR, we have set up really good protocols, I feel like, with the online learning and masking within the halls and hand sanitizers everywhere. I think we've done a pretty good job. But how do you feel about students that are coming here now? Like, they are coming here and then they don't go to most of their classes. A lot of the programs have been changed because of the restrictions and all the regulations. How do you feel coronavirus has impacted the Erasmus program?
Well, I think it has impacted the Erasmus program. I mean, for the incoming students or outgoing students, wherever, that probably, I mean, the everyday life at a university, they don't experience that. I mean, maybe it's only 40% of their classes that are actually taught on site. The rest is online, which of course, takes away from the whole experience. I think it's still an experience worth making, but it's probably not as great as it used to be. And I could just hope that sooner or later that ghastly virus is going to disappear and we will have the true Erasmus experience again.
I think that's something that a lot of students worldwide are hoping for. For example, we have had the luck of being in Austria, where the corona cases are not that high compared to other countries, and our restrictions are still loose compared to some countries. We have had experience of our incoming saying that they still had a great time and they still got to meet a lot of other people and have fun, which is one of the main points of Erasmus, to experience and have fun. But how do you see this going to the future now? Because, I mean, Corona is here and it's looking like it's going to stay for at least a few years. I mean, until a vaccine is developed. How do you see this coming? And also, with the new Erasmus program that the EU is trying to implement, how do you see that going?
I think that probably mobility numbers will go down to some extent. But still, I mean, there will always be, let's put that on, quotation marks, courageous students that still go abroad. And true, I mean, you can never nowadays predict how your Erasmus semester will end. Will it end prematurely? Will you have to go home and so on? But still, I mean, experience from last semesters, the summer semester it actually worked out pretty well for most students. They then had to come home partly, but most of them could actually follow the online classes from their host university. And the Erasmus, the idea was rather generous, I mean, they got the extra costs were partly covered. So there are some emergency measures in place that will make that experience also possible in the future, I hope.
And how do you feel about this idea of virtual mobility?
Virtual mobility, I mean, is a great thing if you can't really have normal mobility. But, I mean, in order to have the real experience, you should go abroad and just meet other people, find your way into a different society, a different environment. I mean, staying at home and doing a virtual mobility, it never really gets you out of your comfort zone somehow. And, and you don't have all these opportunities that Erasmus offers you, making new friends, experiencing new things.
I think that's a very good point, because I think for us as ESNers, that's the same argument that we have made, that virtual mobility cannot provide you with the experiences that you would learn when you're actually there. I mean, with all the restrictions and everything, you should follow them, you should follow the guidelines and stay healthy. But if you have the chance to do this experience, I think you should still do it.
I would say so as well.
Yeah.
No, you can't replace that actually with something virtual, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the screen does not replace our feelings, I guess.
And I think, I mean, the European Union is actually, offering things in that respect. But I mean, they should keep into consideration, all these mobilities. I think over the last, 20 years or so, it was approximately 9 million people or so. Wow. I mean, I think most of these students or other people that went abroad with Erasmus actually came home as convinced Europeans.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes you really feel, what that Europe is.
Yes,
what it does for you.
yes. So I have one more question. So a lot of students had changed their Erasmus program due to the Corona pandemic. You probably helped a lot of students change their Erasmus destination, or at least their abroad destination. Could you go into further that? How was that process like, when the Corona pandemic hit and suddenly all these students couldn't go abroad and you had to make sure that they get into the right countries and all that stuff, the whole process. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, basically, I mean, me being in Vienna, them being somewhere all over Europe, it was more of providing them with information, telling them, that's the situation. Right now we have a travel warning for your country. We would suggest that you come home. Try to figure out something, with your host universities. Can you do online? Online classes? Or should you start your classes here at the FH again? And that generally worked out pretty okay for most of them, I think. And of course, also thanks to the help from the international offices of our host university, our partner universities, who also did a great job.
And so how was it for the outgoing students? That they are now, for example, one of our members, Beta, he wanted to go to Spain, had to cancel it because Spain is too dangerous right now, too risky. How were you able to help other students find a different destination? Because the country they were in was too risky.
Basically, we try to be as flexible as possible, and as long as our partner universities, and most of them are, taking into consideration the situation into consideration, most of them are rather flexible, and so it was often possible to find another destination. However, with the virus, I mean, you can never tell what's going to happen. And, one country might be in a better situation today, and tomorrow,
it could get worse. Thank you, Claus, for all the amazing insights. Before we wrap up for today, would you have anything like to say to our viewers, to people who maybe want to go on Erasmus or trying to find out about Erasmus, or even former Erasmus students who are thinking about going again?
I mean, especially taking the coronavirus situation into consideration, I would say, still give it a try, do it. I mean, you might go to another country, but especially if you stay in Europe, you're going to be home fast. So I guess, right now Erasmus is the best thing you can do because it has more of a structure, so it really, and that would also help you in a case of emergency.
Yeah, and you also have, ESNers.
ESNers.
Who can help and make sure that you get home safely, or that all your stuff gets sent to you back home. Because that's something that we did, for example, that we sent stuff back home for students that had to leave because of an emergency. So I want to wrap this up. Thank you, Claus, very much for being here with me today. I hope all my viewers enjoyed this. If you want to follow the trip, please follow us at ESN BFI Vienna. This is Phong. This is
Claus, it was a great pleasure.
It was a great pleasure. Thank you very much, Claus.